Welcome to the home of Star Witch, where we explore witch lore and astrology for all cunning magical folk. I invite you to join me, your host Michaela, with a cup of your favourite magical elixir and indulge in some tantalising spellcrafting and witchy conversations. Welcome, beautiful magical folk, and I'm so delighted to be bringing you the incredible special guest today, Sarah Wilder, who is an internationally coveted talisman designer, creative ritualist, and she is known for creating symbolic wearable art that acts as portals to access personal potential. Sarah has a deep connection to philosophy, cosmology, astrology, and the natural world. She fuses her diverse experiences ranging from fashion and wildlife rehabilitation to her love of ancient symbols and occult art into powerful, meaningful designs. Her talismans invite self-inquiry and personal focus, each acting as a key to unlock hidden doors within the psyche. Through her creations, Sarah guides others toward their soul-aligned path, reminding them of who they are and anchoring them on their journey to self-remembrance. And we're recording this on Thursday, which is sacred to Jupiter. And I've always felt that Jupiter governs symbology and symbols and archetypal energies. I know you're a big lover of, Sarah, so I'm going to hand it over to you because I'm very curious to ask you, as a witch and a ritualist, how did you discover that you had a deep calling for creating talismans? I mean, I know you have this amazing Venus-Sun conjunction, 29 degrees, that anaretic karmic degree in Capricorn with Vesta. So co-joining with Vesta, the sacred priestess, the feminine asteroid at 27 degrees, right up in your 9th house. I do have permission from Sarah to share this law in her chart. And so that's an incredible potent combination of Venus, Sun, and the flame of spiritual consciousness, the priestess that brings, this is my interpretation in Capricorn, that brings back the sacred records and a strong connection to feminine law. So I suppose to segue in, how do you feel you represent that in your chart with Venus and the Sun and Vesta?
Thank you for that beautiful intro. And yeah, that's a really good question. I don't know that I did anything like strategically or planned this path. That was never, it's just, I just eventually came home to myself and started just, remembering, oh, this is what I love this. And, it's that when you read a book or you have a conversation or this is something that creates that spark and it, lights that flame again. And that really happened at such a pivotal moment in my life because I was working in the fashion industry and I had accessory labels my entire life. So since I was like a little girl, maybe like 10, say, I would be braiding bracelets and selling them for $2 in the classroom. So like really OG, always making things with my hands and particularly around jewelry and adornments. And then, my teens, I explored more of that, like, yeah, handmade stuff. So I made my own formal outfit. I made my own earrings and accessories, and everyone would, go to parties and stuff, and I'd just be wearing all this weird stuff that I made. So I was always like, yeah, really about that creative expression using tangible materials and beautiful materials and that kind of thing. And so there was always that golden thread of maybe the creativity piece, particularly with my upbringing. I had a father who was like a successful commercial artist. So he was basically like, you know, a graphic designer before graphic computers existed. So everything was hand done and drawn. And so, you know, I grew up in a really creative household. And so there was always that permission to pave your own way creatively in my world. And then the spiritual aspect or the more meaningful like depth came when I was pregnant. And so it's kind of like I birthed myself, you know, that cliche, you birth yourself when you give birth to your first child. And so I birthed like the mother version of myself, and she really wanted depth. You know, I really craved more meaning in what I was doing and more, yeah, depth and richness and symbolism. And um, it kind of was, it sparked in me when I was working in the fashion industry. I was pregnant and I just hated it. I absolutely hated it. I felt like a fish out of water. I was like, I don't belong here. What am I doing? And I loved the like, you know, personal expression piece, but everything about that industry was just felt off to me and just wasn't my thing, right? And I remember my mother bought me this ring, and it was this kind of chunky silver ring, and it had this kind of etched mandala kind of symbol in it. And I wore that throughout that whole pregnancy. And it was just like this constant thing of like, it was like calling me, it was reminding me who I was, because I was like, I don't even know what a mandala is at this point, but I'm like, it means like it's something. And when I bought it, it didn't come with a meaning or anything. It was just like a pretty piece. But I think that planted the seed for me. I was like, this feels like really significant to be wearing this right now. It's reminding me of like this other thread, this other golden thread that I haven't actually paid any attention to yet in my life, which is that more spiritual aspect. And potentially, you know, that's the Vesta kind of thing getting activated, because it's, you know, creeping towards my Saturn return at that point too. So yeah, and I remember I was like 8 months pregnant. I think I was just about to finish that job that I was in, and I didn't really know how to use any design programs or anything at this stage. This is very long ago anyway. There wasn't like a lot available to us. And I just remember channeling, or not even channeling, just like creating these 20 symbols. And it just like was like this huge body of work. And I did it in like 2 days. And then I didn't even know really what they were, you know, yeah, I didn't really know what they meant yet, but they just were so unique and different. And then I had my baby, and then I came back to it. So it's kind of like, you know, I birthed these talismans at the same time that I was, you know, birthing my son. And then when I was more available to it, it all started to come together. And I was like ravenously studying, and I couldn't get enough of learning about the elements and archetypes and astrology and moon and like all the things. I was just like, could not stop. And every day it would just be like tending to the baby, putting him down for a nap. I'd have an hour for a nap, and I'd just be on the internet going, wow, there's all this cool stuff out there that I had no idea about, because I was finally available to it, right? When you work full time and you're partying, you're doing all that stuff in your 20s, you're really not available to what's out there, what's actually calling you. So I think finally I was actually in my body, I was fully available. I was receptive to what was next. And I was allowing that process to really naturally occur too. I wasn't pressuring myself to create a business or any of that kind of thing. I just had this feeling. It was like the seed was planted, and I was like, this is feeding it. This is all this stuff is like, you know, I was just like starved of it. So yeah, I spent like a good year just marinating in lots of occult knowledge and learning just so much about yeah, symbolism and astrology and all the things.
I love that, Sarah. And so was it through being the mother creator that you discovered astrology? Because I love in your chart Venus holds the creation codes.
Yes.
And you've spoken several times into the golden thread, which is very much the Venus cazimi of Venus and the Sun conjunct, and Vesta, the sacred priestess that tends to the hearth fire. And it's like, I was fascinated when you were sharing, because it's like you were out in the world, which is very Capricornian, and
Yeah.
you're coming home to this incredible mother creatrix energy where you discover the deep roots and like the wisdom on the stones. Capricorn reminds me of the crystalline structure of the rocks and the crystals, and even Venus governing fashion and beauty and artistry and um jewelry making. It's all here in your chart. I'm just fascinated listening to you share, but also that initiation into motherhood and the space of creation that opens up in all aspects, because you allowed yourself to drop into the primordial womb for
Yes.
yourself as well as being the mother.
Yes. And when I think about that, I'm a Taurus rising. So my first house is ruled by Venus as well.
Mm,
Taurus moon, so moon mother. So it's like I had to become the mother to fully understand what the mission was, you know? Um, so yeah, such a blessing. And it was just, it honestly, it just felt so significant. It's one of those rare things that like, it's like you have this special, I don't know, something, I don't know, like maybe it's the flame, maybe it's the Vesta flame, like something so sacred in me that I was like, this has to exist. These things have to exist. I can just feel the potency of it. And there's nothing else to do but this. Like if I do anything in my life, it is birth these things. And yeah, I was just such on a mission. And it really helped being available to it because I was like tending to it as well as, raising my child at the same time. And so, um, I really allowed it to grow much like a child would, develop and mature and get these new pieces to drop in and like, oh, okay, now I'm doing like, this is where I'm going. And that's how I've always created. So it's been 10 years now, maybe a little bit more since
interesting. Yeah.
and
Um,
that over those 10 years, has changed a lot. But the process hasn't. There's always been like, I've been journeying something, and at the same time, I'm creating a collection or a design that's really related to what the path I'm walking at the time. So it's kind of like, if you looked at my collections over the years, you'd really just see the story.
and the metamorphosis
Yeah.
of your own transformation and change. And I've got your beautiful collection up here, your new collection, but I also want to just, why we're still on this incredible mother creatrix theme, with your moon conjunct Black Moon, Lilith, and Taurus, you've got a strong calling, because it is an earth trine, isn't it, up to your Capricorn energy, is that the incredible magic that exists in you with Venus and Black Moon Lilith trining with the two luminaries. It's that call of the wildness of nature that you're also bringing in and infusing into the hearth fire of Vesta, and how you tend to that sacred flame, which has incredible reverence and sacredness for your medicine out in the world through Capricorn. And I even loved how you shared about your father being a creative designer and influence with, that's Capricorn and Saturn, and
Mm-hmm.
your beautiful family ancestral. I really want to honor your ancestral medicine that you
Mm-hmm.
carry as well as a wise woman medicine healer.
Yeah, that's been something I've really, I've been living it, and then when I get alerted to the fact that, oh, you have ancestry, you should look into that, like ask more questions to your family. Like you just become more available to those things, especially in your 30s and 40s, you really start to like build the web around you. Um, Yeah, and it would have been probably in the last few years. I actually ended up living with family for the last few years, and that really was healing because I got to have more of those like lineage types of conversations and learn more about our family and our bloodline. And it's obviously always been there, but my mother's side, my mum's maiden name is Douse, and so we come from a line of Dowsers, which are water could be water diviners or at least land, have a deep connection to the natural world, and they can divine the land and find the resources within the land to then build wells or infrastructure or source different materials and that kind of thing. And I don't know enough because obviously it's really hard to like find information from the 1700s and 1600s. But I have heard that at one point that name came about with the Duke of Norfolk, and he hired a dowser to divine the land and find the water or whatever it was at the time. And I think back then people didn't really have surnames. Like he was probably just like a guy who knew the land, a wild man off the streets, and brought him in, and he loved him so much and found him useful, I guess, that he named him Douse, and because he was dowsing. And that's kind of, our lineage then got passed down. So there's, still Dowses in our line. And even this year, I want to deepen that knowledge and reconnect to that medicine, and learn dowsing with dowsing rods because I haven't actually done that yet. But it made sense to me. Like when I learned, I'm like, obviously, like, so I've got this, my father's got that really creative entrepreneurial aspect. And then we've got my mother line's got this divination and land connection thing. So it's like, here I am. I'm just a product of my lineage.
And so divine with your moon and black moon Lilith conjunct, and maybe our ancestors danced together under the crescent moon or the full moon together because we come from there's a similar connection in there with the landscape going back to Norfolk, isn't there?
Yes.
With our witchy ancestry, both of us, that we only discovered this year.
Mhm.
um, Sarah, with this wonderful calling and astrology, I'm always curious, how did you evolve that into human design?
I think I started really because the moon's in my first house. The moon was always my first luminary or planetary body that I really connected to. And so as I was, on this path coming back home to myself and, becoming a mother and all that kind of thing, the moon really called out to me. And so I started to track her a bit more and understand her cycles, and created a calendar for myself of just like, the phases and all that kind of stuff. Really basic stuff back then. But, again, there didn't feel like there was a lot out there. Um,
There wasn't necessarily, was there? It's only
no,
become very
totally
prolific in recent years. Yeah,
10 something.
yeah.
So I hand drew this moon map and,
Mm.
of each cycle and phase. And then, and that led to me creating a calendar too. So I had this moon calendar for I think 5 or 6 years that I was making. And again, all that energy in my ninth house. I'm like, of course, I'm into publishing things too and creating stuff. um, so yeah, I think the moon was my gateway into more deeply understanding the astrology of things. Like I remember growing up reading, the Dolly magazines or that kind of thing, and they would have the little, astro kind of reading at the back or whatever. But because it was very Americanized, the dates were always Capricorn was the 22nd to the 19th or something of January, and I was born on the 20th of January. So I always thought that I was an Aquarius, my whole like life until probably somewhere in my 20s that I was like, oh no, I'm actually like, I understand now it's like time zone things. And so then, coming home to realize, oh no, I'm actually way more Earth than I am Aquarian. Um, and yeah, so I kind of knew about astrology. It was in my vortex. I think I had books that were more about goddesses and things. I remember getting a goddess book when I was like 12. I still have it downstairs somewhere. Um, but yeah, it wasn't until, I really dove more into the moon and her cycles, and then understanding that she's like transiting these other things. And then it opened me, just kind of broadened my scope into astrology. And I got my first like birth chart read straight after. It was probably within the year of going through my Saturn return, because I really felt like there's something big going on here, and what the fuck, like what the
Yeah.
hell is
Yeah,
happening?
totally.
I need
Totally.
answers, and I don't, so Tiani, our friend, our mutual friend, Tiani read my chart for the first time, and yeah, that dropped in. I was like, oh, okay, this is really like making a way more sense as to what's playing out, and to, explain Saturn return, that kind of thing. So then, that, it's all these seeds being planted along the way. And so astrology was always kind of just like an interest um, alongside, and was woven into a lot of my creations. Obviously, the moon calendar is very tuned to the moon cycle, and then, each talisman. And I would start to sync even my business up to things like that too. So made it quite more cyclical, and I have definitely done that now. Um, and then I had, when was it? So I did like a little astrology collection, and then I even did the Jungian archetypes. So, I've got lots of like archetypal things in my collections over the years. And when was it, 2019 or 2018, I actually decided to close my business, to get rid of it and end it. And that was a huge decision. But I was really needing to tend to my inner world and do some healing stuff, and yeah, just not be constantly avoiding, you know, the real deeper stuff that I had to work on. And that gap year is when I found human design, because I was in that, again, that receptive place. I wasn't working, I wasn't distracted by all the things I had to do, operate this business and pay staff and manage, shipping and all the things. And so I had all my energy back to myself pretty much. And I just kind of, shed all the layers. I didn't have a title, I didn't even have a job. I was like, I'm kind of just floating now. I'm just like,
Oh,
feeling
so
very,
very much like that Inanna journey of the descent when
yes.
she goes through the crown, having to give up her title, her recognition out in the world. Very much so, isn't it?
I definitely did that. And like you'll,
Ah,
so I
yeah.
had that full year pretty much of that Inanna journey, and I was just shedding these layers and layers. I was like, I got rid of the calendar and all these things that I overly identified, with, and were like my thing. So it's like when, you go meet someone new, what do you do? I'm like, I'm nobody, I don't, like, I'm just existing. But it was such a gift to myself now in hindsight, because I think everyone should do that at least once in their life, just like shed all the skins and the layers and the titles, and just come home to themselves, and just be in that more receptive, what's out there, what's next for me place. Um, and yeah, that's when I found human design. I got a human design reading about midway point of the year. So I had like completely shed the skin. And then like midpoint, I was like, okay, I'm ready. And then a friend like shared about it, and I was like, cool, I'll book in with this guy. Had a reading, and he introduced me to um, human design, gene keys, and this other Mayan archetypal system all in one reading. And obviously I loved it, because like all these systems and occult systems, again, I was just very drawn to it, and it really like I understood it. I clicked with the language very easily. And kind of again was one of those seed planted moments. I didn't do anything much with it other than just like allow it to integrate and play with it. And then another thing came onto my radar, which was to go to Mexico and do this plant medicine retreat in Mexico. And I was like, I've never gone overseas on my own. I've never really initiated myself in any, way by like doing a big girl thing like that, traveling to another country. I went for, I think, 3 weeks or so, and just being, yeah, more in that retreat space. And, in hindsight, it was like, I'm just one of those people that likes to try everything once. So, yeah, we sat with different plant medicines throughout the week, and one of the last ones was toad medicine, which was 5-MeO-DMT. and very came into it very green. And this is my 33rd year, so that more like the Jesus dying year in the story. And I smoked the toad and I actually had a death experience. So I thought I had died. Like I went through the full death portal and I had reached this kind of enlightenment experience where I felt very much like a um, crescendo of energy. Like it was just the most enlightening kind of feeling, like very angelic almost. And it was like the call up, the cosmic call up, like, okay, you've reached here now, you have to go. And I was like, what? Oh. And then my whole world went, and I literally fell back. And as I fell back, I sung this like angelic note. So I was like completely not conscious for it, but I was like in it. And I was, and I fell back and I went full into purgatory because I was not ready for it. I wasn't ready to die. I wasn't prepared for a death. And so I got to experience, being stuck in purgatory, which was very traumatic, extremely traumatic. And then eventually kind of the higher mind or whatever was like, let go. You have to let go. Like you have to. And all I could think about was leaving my son and like I wasn't done yet and all that kind of thing. And how mad they would be at me. And anyway, I had to reconcile that. And, eventually I was like, okay, I have to surrender and just fully let go of that life now. And as soon as I did that, I got kind of shot out of purgatory into this white nothingness, like just pure consciousness, I guess. And I just remember kind of being up there and looking around and kind of being really pissed off and just be like, what the fuck? Is this it?
Mm.
This is where everyone thinks they want to be, but actually down there is where it's at. Like all I want to do is be down there again and experience the richness of life and the full breadth of life. And so, yeah, it was really cool perspective shift that, I got to experience that. And then lucky enough, got to come back. And I unlocked a lot of grief that was stored in my body. I had this big kind of cathartic release after. But after that, it just was like, it was a full rebirth. And I was there for the Day of the Dead in Mexico too. So literally as we were leaving the retreat, I was in Mexico celebrating the dead. So every single shop front had altars and their loved ones. And I was just like, this is so fucking beautiful and serendipitous, of course. Um, and so that was kind of like me, celebrating life and death and all the things. And that was a really pivotal moment in my life, I think. It just gave me that full perspective of no longer fearing death, understanding what the process is, and really appreciating life more so than I ever had before. And so after that, then I was initiated with a friend passing in the next couple of months after that. So again, it was kind of like I knew the thing that she had journeyed and could, see it from a different perspective. And then after that, all COVID happened. So throughout all of COVID, I was really in student mode again because I had kind of, graduated whatever that chapter was. I died and I'd been reborn. And so it was kind of like, what's the next version of Sarah look like? And all I wanted to do was learn. I just wanted to study and study and study. So I think I spent most of COVID sitting in my room on my laptop watching, human design reading, trainings and videos and reading big, huge documents of all this like stuff. And, my book collection grew significantly. And yeah, so I was just very much, for about 2 or 3 years, just really ravenously understanding as much as I could and integrating these systems that I knew. So, having a kind of basic understanding of astrology and then weaving that through with human design and really knowing that quite in depth now. They're all super interrelated and
Mm.
there's one way, one path. And I think that's a real ninth house thing that I've learned too is like, there's not one way. And it's about appreciating all the ways and they all kind of if they're just trying to get you to the same place, then it's beautiful, and they're all kind of, yeah, they come from the one source. It's just different languages.
Absolutely. And I love that's that traditional ancient wisdom of your Capricornian energy. And I was absolutely transfixed when you were sharing about your initiation and um, the space of thank you so much for trusting us with your sharing of your experience as well. That's spoken like a very deep
Mm.
earth priestess, especially with your Black Moon Lilith in Taurus, holding that ancient knowledge and that wisdom, but having also to go through those initiatory gateways, which have been around for a long, long time, but they've been recently brought back in modernity as well,
I
with
think
the
also,
intersectional points between different cultures as
yeah,
well. Mm,
yes.
mm.
I think the other, bigger thing that's been playing out has been Pluto transiting Capricorn, since 2008. So 2008 is the year that my father died. And so ever since then, that's been this huge initiation, and I'm at the last, the critical degree of that whole journey that I've been on in learning about death, life, and what it means to be, yeah, I don't know, this earth steward, I guess.
Yes, and it's very Venusian because we are heaven on earth, and the Venus creation codes are here on earth. And
Yes.
like it was a couple of years ago that one of my dearest friends gifted me one of your talismans, and that's how I discovered you. And that's our beautiful beloved Astro Queen that gifted me one of your talismans, and then that's how I found your work. And of course, you've joined the Venus Path, the Venus uh, program, which is Venus and the Moon,
Yeah.
marking celestial star passages. How have
Yeah.
you found that journey for yourself, Sarah?
Oh,
Did you
I,
join the Morning Star, or was it
yeah,
just
the leap.
and yes, and you're doing the full complete journey, which is interesting because that journey started with the Venus Cazimi in 20 degrees Leo, which is the creative expression. It's the sovereignty of feminine leadership and the divine heart service. So you're under that realm doing this particular Venus path with me, aren't you? So how have you found that? Because your artwork's been incredible, I have to say, with what you've been
In and
sharing,
out, I'm
each of the
flowing in and out.
passages.
I think for me, it was something I really had to do personally because Leo rules my fourth house, so it's been my lineage stuff. So a lot of that has been, um, yeah, really playing out and understanding like the feminine lineage side of things. And I've had a lot of deaths and rebirths in that space too, relating to, all the themes of that house. So I think that's been and I always kind of knew that that was like the final boss that I had to face off with was this journey, was this whatever has come up through the last, how long's it been now since over,
Since August 2023. Mm.
yeah. So yeah, it's a year now, and that last year has been hugely, oh, transformational, but um yeah, a big maturation for
Mm.
me as well as a woman. But also just, yeah, I knew that was coming. And so I'm so grateful for that container because it's helped me make sense of what's been playing out rather than just kind of like, thinking that there was some other cosmic plan that I didn't know was going on.
It
But
is a strong devotional journey, isn't it? And just for the listeners, where Sarah and I are recording this in the evening star, so she's rising as the evening star, and she's activating the cosmic womb of creation this month. So it's a perfect time, and we're coming into the equinox gateway, and with your talismans, you're about to do a whole new launch, aren't you? So Ecliptica. Would you like to share into how that came through? And um, the range looks amazing. It's called Mystical Feminine Law of the Stars. But It's so beautiful, Sarah. Everything you've been channeling and describing, and your deeper connection to the planets and archetypes. And I love how you say your unique um, code is more.
I know, I can't help it.
Are,
I
are
have
you ready? Are you ready to talk into your talisman collections? Would you like to?
yeah, so I've gone in and out of feeling very inspired and creative to having, big periods of melancholy and not inspire and, restful periods and that kind of thing, right? Just trusting that the cycle of an artist, a true artist, just really, going on that journey. Um, and I think one thing, and this is something that came onto my radar recently, was the difference between like ninth house astrology, which is maybe more masculine led, versus third house astrology, which is more feminine led. And I found that a very interesting thing because I have a huge stellium in my ninth house. So I was like, yeah, I really get that. And a big part of my, I'm mostly earth in my chart. We have so much earth in my chart. So it's obviously very feminine, like natured and coded. And, having Taurus in my first house with my moon, it's kind of like, Taurus being the earth mother or mother earth, personified, plus the Venus connection there, plus the moon. I'm like, they're the three feminine bodies, right? And so I think just, entering into this container with you with the Venus, the journey with Venus and the moon has really reminded me of that missing piece, which was to kind of disconnect more from the more, maybe more masculine archetypal energies and systems and way to do things and really reconnect with the feminine aspect, which then makes sense because it's, that Venus journey started in my fourth house, which is very linked to the mother and the feminine. So yeah, I think really this container's been the incubation period for me to birth this new thing because I feel really inspired again by particularly the three core feminine planetary or luminary bodies. And so Venus, Moon, and the Earth. I think we forget the Earth, but she still plays a really big role. And so I really wanted to create talismans that paid homage to their energy and what they've taught me over this chapter. And then I added in, so I was kind of like playing in this, like I thought, okay, the three bodies, I can do that. But then there was like this niggling, like, no, but Saturn's been a really big player in this, and also Pluto. Like, even though they're typically more masculine archetypes and, the mythology of them are more masculine, there's still a feminine aspect because, there's Scorpio linked to Pluto and there's Capricorn linked to Saturn. So I'm still like, they're still great teachers of feminine law. Because, things that I've learnt personally over this, last kind of chapter of my life has been really about getting better boundaries, being more having, yeah, better structure in my life so that I can flow within that structure and having these systems to really anchor myself into to see and live my life through so that it makes sense of things. Otherwise, it just feels like chaotic and whatever. So I think they were really the missing pieces. Like having those systems has really helped me really focus and birth what I'm here to birth and even go back to study and things like that. I really, the structures really make sense to me now. So yeah, the collection's really based on those five planetary and luminary bodies. And in my in human design, we all are encoded with this cross energy. And so it's the combination of our sun and earth placements on either side of our charts. We have a conscious side and an unconscious side. And it's those four, I guess, like archetypal energies that make this theme that kind of you're here to journey in your life. And mine's actually called the right angle cross of laws. And so when I first read it, well, when I was told it back in 2019, I was like, law? Ew. like that sounds so boring. And, I didn't understand it. And it was one of the harder ones. Like, you read the little blurb or whatever, and it's kind of like, nah, I don't get it. And I guess the more I've, embraced myself and evolved and all that kind of thing, I haven't dwelled too much on it, but I start to see it now. It's really about this, like, stewarding the old in a new way, or bringing the ancient ways into the present, and because they've stood the test of time, they're the true laws, right? And then we've got these like man-made laws over the top of everything that telling us other things, and it's like the laws of the planets, the laws of nature, the laws of the land. They're the laws that I'm here to bring and continue to speak into and share about. So yeah, it's all kind of like just came through in that sense of just knowing I had to speak about laws, and these more ancient feminine laws that will save us if we really embrace them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um, I have a strong affinity with Medea, the asteroid, the witch sorceress that's in Capricorn in those late degrees. So my Medea meets your Venus moon. Sorry, Venus Sun Vesta. So that's why we have this
Yeah,
wonderful
they'll have
connection in
that
these
together.
witchy cauldrons. Um, and so it is about the law. And for those of you that are familiar to this, or this is might be a new terminology for you, we're actually talking about feminine law as in LORE, just to spell it out with the differentiation rather than man-made laws. It's a whole different concept, isn't it, Sarah?
Yeah, like folklore, right? It's like oral traditions and passing down stories. And so
Totally.
that's really what my talismans are always been about, is they all have a story. They all have a beautiful encoded kind of message, meaning, story. And you can take it as lightly or as deeply as you want. People just
Well,
wear it pretty and they can't remember what they have, or they'll go, I'm going through this in my life and I read the thing every day and I, do this ritual, and it just really helps transform their life. And so yeah,
mm.
it's really like choose your own adventure kind of thing.
Well, I mean, even though I'm a witch and an astrologer, as you know, we've talked about going back into academic studies. So the cultural anthropologist in me is absolutely fascinated by what you are sharing around the tradition, the storytelling, the archetypes, and the cultural ancestry as well, with the folklore and the medicine and the stories. Absolutely fascinating. So, um, and activating, you've got to solidify your self gnosis as well. So your talismans, when I read the description, they are so beautifully crafted, so the design is amazing, and the symbolism, but also what you've written about them. You're definitely a brilliant wordsmith, with the intentions of how they help to activate the most embodied version of ourselves. So, um, can you, I mean, we've got Earth and Saturn and the Moon and Venus and Pluto. Can you share a little bit about I mean, I know, but for the listeners, the symbolism of your beautiful Aphrodite Venus, and you've got who teaches us about what we value, what helps us to live within our values, that creativity is our birthright, and to always see the beauty in this, sometimes challenging, in life. And the symbolism on your Venus talisman is so incredibly potent. Are you able to share how you were inspired with the symbolism for this particular talisman?
So it's obviously inspired by Venus, but it's called the law of regenerative love. And as we know, Venus is linked to obviously aesthetics and beauty and love, but also values. And it's about like valuing love as a regenerative force. And I've got the beautiful Venus star, five-pointed star in the center of like a scrying hand mirror, which is the Venus symbol. Um, and so, yeah, it's kind of like a reminder to see the beauty of these, initiations or these life cycles that we go through, and be reminded that, that we're living within these cycles that we don't even understand. We don't even really, not everyone knows that this is happening, and playing out. It's only been, even myself being in your Venus container, I can really see it playing out. I really feel the potency of how Venus is affecting, the way that we perceive the world, and the way that we are being taught about love, and being taught about what we actually truly value. And it's got some symbolism of the Venetian kind of clamshells, that typical Venus artwork.
I noticed that. I loved that in your design.
Because she's, she also rules, or yeah, is linked to the waterways as well. So, yeah, I think it just all together, it's beautiful to look at, but it's also, rich with symbolism. And to me, it's like a reminder of to give and receive love, and that's what a mirror would do. You look at yourself and you receive something back, So yeah.
And the flowers, because Venus governs all beautiful flowers.
Yeah, so we've got
Yeah.
some beautiful flowers. I don't think I had a flower in mind. I just kind of, yeah.
Crafted, designed. It's really beautiful. So with the talisman collections, you've got pendants and rings. Is that correct?
Yes. So I've always kind of stuck to the same limitations, I guess, in having, enough space on a surface of a ring to really get the symbol across, and be able to like really go into it like a portal and read into it, like divine it, divine yourself a message. And the pendant is more of a stripped back version of what's on the ring. I played with some new shapes. Usually it would be like a circular design, but I've actually gone out of my comfort zone with doing different shapes for this collection. So I'm really excited to like get them in the flesh, because it's like an actual little mirror around your neck. And then some of the other designs, we've got like a chalice and a like a sword or a blade. We've got, what else? We've got the hourglass for Saturn ruling time, and the key for Earth as well. So yeah, they're kind of like charms.
I love that. And I love that you've done Gaia as our cosmic mother figure. And you've said the grounding and receptive force that anchors us here in our bodies, so important. And even the moon to help us understand our subtle bodies, strengthening our intuition to sense the intangible. And all of these each have their own law associated with them, don't they?
Yes, they do. Yeah, and they're things that I've really come to, come to experience through being initiated by these planets in one form or another, personally, but also, you can experience it through a collective lens as well. And it's just a deep knowing that like if we just all embraced these laws, the world would be a much more harmonious, thriving place. Humanity would just, yeah, would be totally on a different timeline.
Absolutely. And what I love about feminine astrology, and we've spoken about this, is that the intellect is amazing. I mean, we're academics as well. But well, we are, even with its most challenging times.
Right.
Okay. That's where our earth helps us to really ground into the structure but there are gifts in that system as well, I have to admit, yeah. But the other side of us is that as stargazers and women of the earth, we live and breathe the cyclic cosmic rhythms of embodied experiential astrology, which is quite different to the logical, intellectual side of it. That when you go through initiations, and that's what the Venus path is about, isn't it? That each lunar month we actually embody through sky astrology Venus and the crescent moon, whether she's waxing or waning. So she's currently in the evening star, so the star passages are with the waxing crescent moon, that we are living that embodied journey. And that's what you're talking into, Sarah, isn't it? You've actually experienced embodied initiation with the planetary energies and the guardians of these energies to help channel and ground these spectacular talismans down into creation, so manifesting them into reality. So then us very special, excited individuals can then wear them as like living devotional prayers or living devotional rituals on us, in a
Yes.
way, isn't it?
Yeah, because we all will have different and this has always been, I guess, the point of what I do, or one of the points is like there's choices to make and we focus on one thing. So for right now, obviously, like, a big focus point planetary wise for me would be, well, Pluto, because he's like literally dunked my sun and my Venus, so I have no choice. But like, that would be such a beautiful piece for me to honor and wear in reverence of that journey that I've just been initiated on after the fact, is like my, always anchor into that, the things that it taught me and that part of my journey. But also things that you're working towards and wanting to bring more of. So, if you are entering into a Venus kind of journey, then you're working intimately with Venus energy. You should have her on you at all times. This is you're the walking altar. And so anytime starting to, I don't know, it's your life's pulling you in a million directions, you can just anchor back into, okay, well, what is the focus right now? Well, I'm really trying to understand my more feminine nature and the cycles that are playing out with this Venus journey and, the different chakra points and all that kind of thing. So yeah, each one just represents a journey. Either you kind of have been through the journey and it's like the t-shirt that you collected. It's like, yeah, I got it. As your like accomplishment, a graduation gift,
Yeah.
or something that you're really wanting to be, or you're being initiated into, that you're also wanting to work on, integrating that medicine into your life as well. So, yeah, it's really up to the wearer how they want to work with them. But yeah, they've got all the symbolism in there for you to kind of come home to.
Absolutely. And the cosmos is there on your finger or around your neck. It's divine. Um, Thank you so much, darling, for taking the time out of your busy day to join us. And your new collection, Ecliptica, is being launched on the equinox. So is that on the actual launch date though is the 20 the
Yeah. Yeah, so I think Tuesday we're fully launching it 24th of September, and then it's open for 3 weeks. So the way that I structure the way that I work now is I don't want to be one of those 24/7 always available shop people. It's like not my jam. So yeah, it's like, I birthed this project. Anyone that resonates will find it at the right time. You pre-order it within that 3-week period, and then it gets specifically made for you. So it goes through that long, beautiful process of being made, and then you receive it a couple of months later. And so we launch on the equinox, 6 monthly. So one in
Oh,
March.
brilliant. That's good to know.
Yeah.
And
So
so new collections for each equinox, and the limited ranges then, aren't they?
yeah. So they're really made to order. Like
Yes.
I'm not going to just like, stock them. It's just like, if this feels like the right thing for you that you need to journey in this point in time, work with it, grab it and go.
And Sarah, I'm just bringing up your website, but just for the listeners, because I will put it in the description for this episode of the podcast, wildertalismans.com. Is that the best place to order on line, and that's WILDER talismans, MANS.com. And they can find all your beautiful collections there.
Yes.
You also offer incredible sessions. So you do human design as well, and you run collective circles and magical circles, don't you? Is there anything else I've missed out that you'd like to share? Any publications? Oh, you've got your animal cards, your oracle cards.
Mm-hmm. I think I'll have some of them on the store when it opens too. So if, but yeah, otherwise you can get them on Amazon and other bookstores and that kind of thing online. But yeah, that's really where I'm at. And then I'm in student mode, you know, it's like,
Student mode.
yeah.
And what are you studying? Because you're a steward of the earth. So this is so important. Hey, the bridge between the worlds.
I got the cosmic call up to really step more into, I guess, the more environmental science space because I really feel drawn to yeah, conservation, and particularly with wildlife here in Australia. We have such a unique, beautiful wildlife, and what we're doing to it is just, yeah, very heartbreaking. So I found this degree when I was on my usual, you know, every couple of years looking what's out there in the animal world. What can I get involved in? What can I study? What can I learn about? And I found this degree and I was like, oh, Sarah, a degree? You really want to do that? But it just felt right. Like I read the criteria. It's called, it's a Bachelor of Animal Ecology. So I'm working specifically with animals, which has always been my thing. And ecology is our relationship or their relationship to the natural world. So it brings in a lot of yeah, the landscape as well. And so I'm learning, you know, about plants in a scientific way, about different, you know, the ocean in a scientific, the really cool stuff. I'm like, wow, I'm seeing the world in such a deeper, more like I guess I'm definitely one of the more token creative spiritual students in the group, you know, in our cohort. Um,
I know the feeling.
it's like I
Mm,
really bring a different energy, and I do kind of hide that side of myself. I don't
mhm,
really go
mm.
too deeply into that. I can just be yeah, full science nerd. That's fine.
Yes, love that too.
Yeah, but I do still feel like, you know, they're still my people. I still really.
Yes,
And it's like, you know, I'm just feeding these different parts of myself that I know, you know, are all coming together for some grand kind of mission or something down the line where it will just all become the one thing. And right now it's, you know, all these separate projects or whatever. My week looks so eclectic. It's hilarious. Which I love, by the way. I actually love having very different days and diversity in my day-to-day world. Um, but yeah, I just know down the track that there's something really important that I have to do with that. And
absolutely.
yeah, I'm at the point now, my degree, second, third year kind of moment where I'm able to now really, you know, start to find the niches that I really am interested in. And I keep getting called into particularly like conservation. So I have also worked with koalas my whole life as well in different ways. Um, but yeah, it feels really cool to, or really right to be doing just that really mundane stuff, you know, like going out into the park and looking up in the tree and counting, you know, have we got koalas here? I took some koala dog detection dogs, sniffer dogs out the other day into the local bushland because we thought that there were some koalas in our local area. It was a very urbanized area. And so, yeah, I'm working on a project with the koala detection dogs at my university, and we got them to go out and they're trained to find koala scats. So it's really cool to do this, like, just real life, tangible science that's also very beneficial to, you know, the community and to these, you know, vulnerable species. But also there's this spiritual element playing out as well, you know.
Totally. And can I ask, is that to find out where the koalas may actually be in a very limited habitat in urbanization, and to, because they're vulnerable, to then get projects to support them within their own natural habitat. Is that
Yeah,
the
so they don't
idea?
really know how many we've got left. After the bushfires, we lost a huge portion of the numbers, particularly in New South Wales and whatever. But the more, I think Queensland itself has more land clearing than any other state. So in Queensland in particular, there's much more threat of loss of habitat, which then is pushing them into these more urbanized areas. We haven't seen koalas in this particular reserve that I am closely linked to. That's where I volunteer. That's where I was this morning. And they hadn't seen a koala there since 2015. And we suspected there was because we found one of the workers found some scats in the car park. So we were kind of like, are they here? And so determining whether they're there or not then helps us to understand, like, are they coming more closely to these like more urbanized areas? There's dogs all along the fence lines at this reserve. We've got a huge busy main road. There's zero infrastructure. There's zero signage. There's zero communication with the public that they're there. So, to determine if they are in your area is really important, because then you can bring that awareness, that more public awareness, to be more, because they're endangered now. So if I think they're predicting that by 2040 they will be extinct if we keep this up. So that's in our lifetime.
Well, I'm actually so grateful that you're doing this work and that you've gone back into study so that you can bridge these worlds together in the unification. And also, this is your true stewardship of being the earth. And what I love about you sharing that last story is that you walk your talk.
Yeah.
You are the embodiment in a very practical, down to earth way, which I would not expect anything less with your
with my chart.
And yes, so I'm looking at your chart now very curiously, which I won't go into. But thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us today out of your busy timetable and schedule, and just absolutely adore you and your collections. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, all you magical, cunning folk, for joining me here and sharing our precious time together. If you'd like to subscribe to my channel for magical folk, and follow me on any platform where it is that you have discovered me. See you in the wild, magical woods.